Welcome everybody to today's webinar presented by Comcast Rise and e-procurement services. We are thrilled to help our business owner members learn how to sell their products and services online in the best and most innovative ways. This webinar is brought to you by the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in partnership with Comcast Rise, a program created by our partners at Comcast to strengthen small businesses, and also in partnership with e-procurement services, EPS. We encourage you to learn more about Eureka, a new online platform that provides businesses access to the people, programs, and connections that will help bring their businesses to the next level through self-guided programs, coaching, and coaching circles. So we strongly encourage you to join Eureka. Please find our special USHC link in the chat to join Eureka for free today. Well, now it's time for some housekeeping items. We want to remind everyone that this webinar is being recorded, and we're also going live on our USHC Facebook page. Please let us know where you're joining us from by entering a comment on the chat. And remember that you can submit any questions at any time via the Q&A box. And for those joining via Facebook, you can submit your question as a comment, and we will try to answer all the questions throughout the webinar and at the end of the session. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our CEO and President at the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Ramiro Cavazos. Welcome, Ramiro.
Thank you, Laura. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and thank you for the powerful work you do to represent our small businesses every day. My name is Ramiro Cavazos, and I have the pleasure, as Laura said, of serving as the President and CEO of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We were founded 42 years ago to represent the interest of our Hispanic business community. We are the 8th largest economy in the world. If you took the 61 million people living in this country who self-identify as Latinos, we're an ethnic group. So we're Caucasian, we're Afro-Latino, we're Asian, different walks of life. But the one thing we all have in common is that we are interested in creating wealth and prosperity in our communities. 5 million Hispanic-owned businesses in this country fuel our country's gross domestic product at more than $2.6 trillion a year. That is the 8th largest economy if we were our own nation and our own GDP. So with that, these 5 million Hispanic-owned businesses need capacity. They need capital, and they need the ability to make those connections. And we're very honored that we have David Ciroli today, who is going to be helping us. He's with e-commerce services. But before I turn this back to Laura, I want to thank Comcast Rise for their partnership. They are one of our 200 corporate members that invest in our future and our economy. And 70% of the US economy is driven by consumer spending. So what we're doing today is not corporate philanthropy. It's just an economic imperative. Hispanics are the fastest growing consumer. We're the largest part of our workforce. 80% of the growth in the workforce since 2008 has come from our community, and we have more than 260 Hispanic chambers around the country in all 50 states and in Puerto Rico. So with that, Laura, thank you for the work you do. Thank you to everyone that's joined us today for Comcast Rise and e-procurement services. Today, we're going to help you learn how to have your business sell your product and service using online methods, which is clearly a strategy of the future and a strategy of the present to be successful. With that, Laura, thank you to everyone. Thank you, David, in advance, and Comcast Rise for your partnership. Laura, thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Ramiro. So now, without further ado, I would love to introduce to you our speaker of the day, David Ciroli. David has been an entrepreneur and a business leader in procurement, technology, e-commerce, and finance since 1989. David has successfully launched and grown 4 different startups in his career that range from outsourced procurement, supply chain management, e-procurement software, supplier e-commerce enablement software, and financial processing software. David has over 30 years, yes, 30 years of experience in every aspect of startup companies, including capital raises, mergers and acquisitions, and diversity inclusion. Under David's leadership, his current company, EPS, e-procurement services, has become one of the top e-marketplace and reseller software companies in the country and continues to have double-digit growth each year. Welcome, David, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Laura, thank you very much for the introduction, and thank everybody at USHCC for the opportunity to speak today. So we only have a half hour, and I'm speaking today really to cover everything that's going on in the market as far as e-commerce. So we're going to talk B2B, B2C, and B2G today. And so I'll tell you a little bit about EPS to start. So I'll turn that over to Julie. She can bring up our first slide for us. Julie, are you able to do that? Thank you. So as I mentioned, we're here to talk about selling online. So where do I start? Where do I fit? There are so many options out there right now. There's so much to navigate. It's very difficult to try to figure out where to start. And it depends on where you're at within your digital transformation as well. So I'm assuming we have a lot of different folks on the phone. They might be in a different process as far as where they're at in their digital transformation. So we're in the next half hour, we'll cover it all the way from the very beginning to where you really start getting to more of the B2B, business to business, and B2G, working with the government, whether it's state or federal government. So we'll cover all of that, what's available out in the market, and then how do you get engaged, really weighing the options and what's the best approach for your company. Next screen, please, Julie. So some background on EPS, just again, very high level. So we've been working with small businesses, diversity, veteran-owned businesses, women-owned businesses for over 15 years. Our focus has really been scalability. How do we help small businesses really get involved, not only in B2C, it's a great starting point, but also move past that and drive larger business revenue lines. We're getting involved in B2B and B2G, and it really is all around technology. So it's a technology that's available in the market now, technology that our company EPS offers, and then other in marketplaces that are out there that you're able to sell on or you're able to build on your own. So that has been our focus. We have mentoring programs here. All of our account managers work hand in hand with our diversity partners, our small business partners. So we're a company to where we're really focused on helping you grow and building a business plan around technology. That's driving the future, as everybody knows. So next screen, please. So today's agenda, again, we only have a half hour, so I'm going to cover everything very high level. But we're going to talk about what's the difference between e-commerce, e-marketplace, multi-channel marketing, e-procurement, and then really what factors do you need to consider? Where do you fit? And if I want to grow, what do I need to consider in order to grow? It's hard for our small business partners to grow. It's hard to get capital. As Laura mentioned, I have had 4 successful companies, and I've been in your shoes. I've been in an area where I couldn't get a loan, I couldn't get capital, and we had to find a way to grow, and that's what we're going to talk about. And then the technology that's needed. There's different technology that's out there, whether you're talking B2C or B2B or B2G, and then what type of technology will I use as far as where I want to take my business? Am I going to stay within a certain market, or do I want to scale and grow outside that market? What are the costs? Can I afford those costs right now? And where do I start? So we're going to cover, or try to cover, all of that today within 30 minutes. Next screen, Julie. Just again, very high level. A lot of folks, when they're talking with us and they're talking to our consultant team here, they have, what is the difference between e-commerce, e-procurement, e-marketplaces? What does it all mean? Well, if you boil it down to very simple terms, e-commerce is just an online store. A lot of folks out there may say that's exactly the route I want to go. I want to learn how to build my e-commerce storefront, and there's a lot of options that are out there. Which ones do I look at? And we'll talk about which ones you may want to consider, and it all goes around what direction is your company headed. E-procurement. E-procurement's been around for over 15 years. So e-procurement is where most of the B2B large enterprise accounts, so the corporations, they're using e-procurement software. especially to buy from their indirect spend, and especially from their smaller suppliers. So we work a lot of diversity groups. We have our own diversity programs here. We'll talk a little bit about that later as well. So you have to have the technology to work within those e-procurement softwares that are out there. Some of them are Reba, Coupa, and we'll mention some later as well. And an e-marketplace. Great history on e-marketplaces. If you go back and you just do some history on department stores, and in the US, when department stores finally came up, it literally changed the direction in the history of the US. When department stores came up, you no longer had separate stores, a cobbler for your shoes, grocery for your or small grocery for your food, and so on. So it's multiple items, obviously, that you can put within one department store, multiple items that you can buy. That's an e-marketplace. You can go to an e-marketplace. The perfect example is one of the first ones that were out there is Amazon. And we'll talk a little bit about Amazon because a lot of our smaller businesses will start there. They're just at the beginning of their digital transformation, and they really want to get a good feel for what's it like to sell online. And is that the most affordable and the most advantageous way for me to do it? But again, that's very high level of the three differences, and where a lot of our small business partners start and where a lot of them continue to grow. We don't cover all those at EPS, but we do mentor about in all of those areas. We do talk to our partners about where you can start and where you can grow. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about online selling. So e-commerce. So e-commerce is your e-commerce storefront. The majority of e-commerce is B2C, so your business to consumers. So Shopify, Volusion, Fiserv. Fiserv is one of our partners. Some folks on the line might go, Fiserv, that's why I think of them as banking. I think of them as a merchant account provider. Fiserv is actually a great company. We'll talk to them about that. I have a few slides about Fiserv, but there's a lot of different e-commerce software companies out there that can help you build your e-commerce storefront. Does EPS do that? No, we don't do that. But we do help our small business partners, our MBEs, our diversity partners, if they're just beginning there. Or we may recommend going into an e-marketplace, because in Amazon, you have two choices. And that's at the bottom there, but you have two choices within Amazon. They have a B2C area and they have a B2B area. So business to business. So Amazon Business only started 7 years ago. So they were one of the first ones to market with an e-marketplace that was business to business. A lot of our partners, they're already in, well, they're our partners. So when I say partners, that means our customers, but they're more than customers to us. They are our partners. So let me define that, because we do work with them on every aspect of their business. So a lot of them, our partners, have started in e-commerce. And really the next piece, and it started about 7 years ago or so, was multi-channel marketing. And some examples of that is Channel Advisors or Sellbrite. And what multi-channel marketing is, you say, I now have my own e-commerce storefront, and we'll talk about how do I set that up? Where do I start? What are the costs? But a lot of times when you run into that, you're really talking, the biggest thing is search engine optimization. So you say, how are people going to find me? So while that was going on, multi-channel marketing started to develop. And they said, well, I want to be able to sell on different channels. So I want to be able to sell on, now that there's an Amazon, now there's a Walmart, all of a sudden all these other e-marketplaces, Etsy, eBay, Google even has an e-marketplace now, and it keeps growing and growing. So if I want to sell on all of them, but I'm a small business, and in order for me to sell on all of them, I just don't have the resources. So multi-channel marketing companies started popping up, so to speak. And now you have them out there. Now we'll talk a little bit about that. Is there an advantage of selling there? Is that a good business line? Is that a good fit for you? And for some, it's yes. And for others, it's no. And if you have a very unique product line, then I would say it's a yes. If you don't have a unique product line, a lot of those multi-channel marketing companies, they'll say, oh, would you like to sell office supplies, or would you like to sell industrial cleaning supplies? They have the same SKU numbers that everybody is using to build their catalogs. So if that's the case, and that's where you're at, that might not be the best idea of going into multi-channel marketing. You might want to then think about it, leapfrogging that, skipping that part of the evolution of where we came from e-commerce to multi-channel marketing. And you want to start talking about e-procurement, because e-procurement's been around for 15 plus years. And that's where you'll see the e-procurement in most of your public sector, larger public sector, federal government just as well. And in all enterprise accounts, so larger corporation, call it the Fortune 1000. So that e-procurement is really B2B and B2G, so business to business and business to government. One of the most difficult areas to get into is business to government. Is your business selling to the government, whether it's state, whether it's federal, and everybody thinks about bids. And we'll talk a little bit about, actually that would be our program, our NDVSB program, which is next in the e-marketplace area. We'll talk a little bit about that, how we made it easier for our small business partners to participate within a B2G environment and keep it to where it's affordable and it's a good starting point. But in e-marketplace, as we defined that earlier, Amazon was one of the first ones. Walmart is probably the closest, I would say, as far as market competition. I'm not going to say probably, they definitely are. So Walmart keeps advancing, and Walmart actually has, like Amazon has, fulfilled by Amazon, to where you actually buy shelf space and Amazon ships your order. That's called Prime. I'm sure a lot of you know that. Walmart has moved into that as well now. So they're really the closest as far as competition to Amazon now. But as I mentioned, you have Etsy and you have other ones out there for e-marketplaces, and NDVSB. So NDVSB, I'll go a little bit slower because I've been saying it so many times, but if you Google NDVSB, and you'll be able to get this slideshow at the end, I believe Laura says she's going to send it out. You'll see more about NDVSB. That's the program we put together. As I mentioned, for 15 years, we're focused on our diversity and our small business and veteran partners. We have been. So we had to figure out, how do we help thousands? Over the years, we've been helping hundreds with different organizations. That's where NDVSB came from. It stands for the National Diversity Veteran Small Business Program. So over the last couple of years, it's become the largest diversity veteran small business inclusion program in the country. So that might be a fit. That might be something you want to look at. Again, it goes back to where I started. It goes back to, where am I now? I'm at the beginning of this. Where do I fit? And can I scale? Even if I'm at just starting to build an e-commerce storefront, and maybe that's where I start with Fiserv, can I scale into these other opportunities? The answer is yes. It's really navigating the market and understanding what's out there, and having folks like my team at EPS, or there's other companies out there that actually advise you. Good news about the EPS folks is we don't charge you for that type of advice. We're here to help our MBEs and our diversity partners. And like I said, we've been doing it for a long time. So next screen, please, Julie, because I think I only have about 10 more minutes and I want to get through all of them. So business planning factors, again, depending on where you're at, you really have to look at the market. So just from what I've said so far today, and I could literally spend an hour on every single one of those markets, you have to say, what market do I want to sell in? I'm sure there's a lot of folks online right now that say, well, I make product myself. I may make bracelets or necklaces or clothing or whatever the case might be. So that market might be your B2C market. That's where you want to be, and that's exactly where you want to focus and stay. What type of technology is available to me? And is it cost effective? Am I going to be able to afford that type of technology? So that's when you make decisions of, what technology am I going to need for B2C, B2B, and B2G? Can I afford it? And most importantly, is it scalable? That's where you ask yourself that next question. I'm in B2C now, but as I continue to grow, I might want to move into B2B and B2G. So that's part of our discussions when we're talking about business plans and technology here at EPS with our partners. So go, Julie, the next piece, please. So what technology is needed? How do I use the technology to sell online? So B2C, we talked a little bit about that. Again, Fiserv is one of our partners. I think we have a few screens in here about Fiserv, but there's a lot of companies out there that offer that technology. So whether it's Logic Block, or whether it's Volusion, or whether it's Fiserv, I always bring up Fiserv because Fiserv for us is all in one. Everything you need within building your own e-commerce storefront, that's the technology you're looking for. You have to look at, how do I build my storefront? How do I put that together? What type of templates do I put together to sell the products that I want online? What do I need for processing payments? I need a merchant account. How do I do credit cards? How do I process those cards? And so on. So that's one of the technologies that are out there, and Fiserv has all of that. Some of the companies have some of that, like I mentioned before, Volution and others. So that's a technology you really say, okay, that's what I need, and can I afford that type of technology in my B2C? So a B2C, And I think we have a pricing screen a little bit later, but so I bounce around a little. But you're gonna, depending on how much you're looking at and what you're planning on selling online, that cost is going to range anywhere between a very basic B2C site, $5 to $6 grand, all the way up to a very robust B2C site, $30,000 that has inventory, fulfillment, etc. And the same thing happens with channel marketing. In B2B and B2G, that's why, again, we're looking at a little bit more of an investment. But is there software out there that's scalable? What we looked at when talking to our MBA partners is back to what I mentioned earlier: capital investment. How much do I have as far as resources? What can I invest in this? And it's always been difficult, but since COVID, it's made it almost impossible for our small businesses to have any type of additional capital and those be able to invest in that. So it's really now taking a look at technology that is available, and our partners that we have, they said, if I can find affordable technology, and some other companies do this as well, but I think we're one of the first that's really been as aggressive with it. They may have a transaction fee to say, I'll share in your profits as you grow, and I'm going to make it affordable so we can both start together. That's really new to the market, that type of pricing plan. There's not too many of them out there. Most of it has been, if they have a transaction fee, they still have a high entry fee. So you're going to be looking for that type of technology, because the costs, depending on where you go and what you're looking at, even with B2C. Julie, go to the next screen, because that's that cost of selling online. So when you go to B2C, and I'll go back to our good friends at Fiserv, because they're an all-in-one, but one of the biggest things of selling online is search engine optimization. That's very costly. So I'll give you an example. After we're done today, go type in NDVSB and it'll pop right up. That's our program. If you type in EPS, our acronym for e-procurement services, you won't see us. We'd have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in order for us to be found on Google, using all of the functionality that Google needs and the investment you have to make in order to get to the top of the list. But if you have a unique name and you register that name on Google, and there's different things that you can do, but there's still a cost to search engine optimization, especially if you're just starting off with an e-com store. Folks at Fiserv can help you out with that as well. Lots of other consultants do it, but there's a cost when you hire a consultant. So part of being successful on B2C is really taking a look at, search engine optimization. How am I going to be found, especially if you're selling a service? So a lot of times we'll say, if you're going to go to B2C and the cost of selling online, you might want to consider starting off with maybe an Amazon, especially if it's consumer products. Now, Amazon is difficult to navigate. How do I win the buy boxes? The buy box means how do I come up as a first pick when someone's searching? Lots of things you have to learn within Amazon. It's a difficult world, and you have to have a part number that matches up to an Amazon part number. We help with all of that. Like I said, we do mentoring, we do consulting here, and we help with how to sell on Amazon. So some of you may say, yeah, I've tried that. I went to Amazon and it's very hard. It's just registering and trying to figure out how to get my catalog up there. We've made it easier. So we actually have Integration Plus for Amazon, but there's a nominal cost for that. So it's a good entry point for B2C. And then you can always move into building your own e-commerce web store. And then B2B and B2G, what are those costs? Those can get pretty expensive. And again, there's a lot of different options out there. I'm going to look at my watch here because I think I have about 7 more minutes, Laura. So I'll try to get that.
I think you're fine. You're fine. We have until 3 p.m. to answer questions.
Oh, we do. Okay, perfect.
Yes,
I'll slow down a little bit.
I think it was 30 minutes for your presentation, but it's okay.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll slow down just a little bit then. So the other piece, as I was mentioning, is B2B and B2G. So when you're talking about the B2B, we went back to one. I want to be able to sell, and I want to look at corporations, or I want to look at public sector and B2G, and I want to be able to sell direct to them. But how do they purchase? What do they do? So to be quite frank and quite pointed, because we work with so many of the corporations, we work with over 20 of the billion-dollar roundtable members. Those are the corporations that spend over $1 billion a year with diversity, local, and minority suppliers. So they're a very elite group. So we're very familiar with what their requirements are, what their needs are. And most of them have, as I mentioned earlier, they do have what's called an e-procurement platform. I'm sure some of you online know what that is. So they have an Ariba or a Coupa or a Jagger, but there's an e-procurement platform as part of their corporation where they have online catalogs within that application to buy from those suppliers. Now, what those applications offer, and it's mostly to the smaller suppliers, is you can come in and you could do all of your, if an order is placed with you, you can fulfill and invoice all that order manually. You have to log on to each system. So it's very difficult. You say, okay, now I'm starting to grow and I got one customer with Ariba. Now I got another one with Coupa. Now I have another one with Unimarket. So it's very resource intensive. What's the key? The key is you have to really look at the technology we talked about before, what's available. A lot of times when you go out there and a lot of our small business partners say, yeah, I found integration companies and they charge so much for it's computer language, a CXML integration, an EDI integration, XML integration. They say, so it costs prohibitive. Now, maybe I could take on one account at a time, and then I'm usually only getting the smaller part of those orders or the smaller part of that bid because I can't handle high volume, a high transaction. So it can get very expensive. So that's when we talk about B2B and B2G, we talk about we have to make this products that are affordable and scalable. We'll talk a little bit about that because I'm not here to sell EPS stuff. I'm not a salesperson. I'm more of a consultant. But it's very unique of what we've put together in the last several years and bringing this to market for our small business partners. And that's part of NDVSB. And we're partners with NMSDC. We're partners with Rosie Network, and we're working with you all at USHCC. So we continue to expand that. So that's B2B and B2G and costs of selling online. When you get into, I'm going to go cut backwards a little bit because those usually are top ones when we're talking to our partners. They're talking about, okay, I want to talk B2C, then I want to leapfrog. Literally, they leapfrog that channel marketing. It works great, but it's usually just a stopgap. It only works for a while to drive revenue, and it's very intense. It's a very competitive market. But I'll talk a little bit about that because you can say, oh, that's great. The costs aren't bad. It's only $50 to $1,000 a month. Well, how did I get to $1,000 a month? You became successful. They charge you more when you become successful. That's not a very good plan for our small business partners. So their pricing plans on channel marketing is based upon how many orders you have coming in. And at the same time, if you have a unique product, not bad, but there's add-ons within there. So usually when you're using them, the add-on inventory, there's an extra cost. The add-on fulfillment, because you don't have a way for fulfillment, here's an extra cost. So again, as I mentioned, a lot of our business partners and our small business companies, they said, okay, I'm at B2C. I think I'm going to jump over that channel marketing piece of it and tell me more about the B2B and B2G and how I can get involved. And then can you tell me more about the programs that are out there and what's the cost of selling online with those programs? So as I mentioned before with Amazon now is $40 a month, I think it's $40 a month. And then they charge a transaction fee. And depends on your product category. So that's going to be anywhere between 8 and 15%. Now, what's come out since 2020, early 2020, going into B2G, the federal government awarded a federal e-marketplace, and their goal was to support diversity, veterans, small business, local, hub zone, underutilized companies. And they awarded it to 3 different companies: Amazon, Overstock, and Fisher Sy. My professional opinion, I don't really understand Overstock and Fisher Sy, why they got part of the award. Amazon, I get it. They're the best ones out there as far as being around long enough and working with the federal government. Once again, very difficult on there. So we do have partners on there. We do assist them on there, but our NDVSB program is what we put in place to really make it a lot easier. Same thing within there though. Your margins are smaller. So they charge you the same way. It's going to be that cost, plus it's going to be somewhere between 18 and 15% per transaction. There's a few other ones out there and selling services. It goes up as high as 45 to 86% per transaction.
That's a lot.
Yeah, It's crazy when you look at some of that, Laura. And the
Wow.
pricing, it's so, I mean, your margins go down so to such a thin level that it's almost impossible to be competitive, let alone make a good profit or a good business revenue line. Or you could have a great business revenue line, but you're not going to have a very big profit. So I can tell you, it is a good place to start, but can you make a large business revenue line with that? And is it a big enough revenue line to grow your business? In most cases, I'm going to say no. And again, we know those e-marketplaces pretty well, especially Amazon. And there's, I know you're gonna, people think, oh, that's amazing, but there are not many sellers on Amazon that sell more than $1 million a year. Most of it's on the consumer side. Most of it is a hobby. So it's additional income. It's not a business revenue line. And so again, we support Amazon and Amazon Business. But again, it's very difficult. It's a good place to start, but is it somewhere where you would, that's it, you stop. We always say, no, it's your starting point. You can start your business revenue line there, but you're not going to be able to build it out enough to continue to invest in your company and grow. So that's the charges in the federal e-marketplace that they have. That was to help small businesses like everybody on the call to start working with the federal government. But then again, they kept the same pricing in there, which I found a little shocking, because again, you're talking about margins now, and you're talking about costs, and is it competitive? So that's, again, we'll talk a little bit about NDVSB in our program. So there are other programs out there that most of you probably aren't aware of. I'll just talk about NDVSB for a minute. That program, there is a private sector program within there. We work with NMSDC on there, so I'm sure there's some folks on the call right now that are NMSDC certified. So they have their own e-marketplace, and it's targeted for their 1,500 corporate members. Off of our NDVSB program, we have a federal program. So our goal is to bring as many of our small business partners to the federal government, but not through a bidding process, not through getting a GSA schedule, going to get a GSA contracts listed on the GSA sites, as that's very difficult to do. And it's very costly. So we said, we've got to start somewhere. It's kind of like starting in Amazon and B2C. Where do we start our small businesses, our MBEs and our veterans? Where do we start them in the federal government? The answer is with the government purchase card, their credit card, their P card. So that's where we start them. You just have to be able to have the technology to integrate to the federal e-marketplace, and it happens to be the NDVSB AFEC marketplace that you integrate to. And what's the cost on that one? Well, we saw what everyone else was doing, so we said, we better make this about a third of the cost. And so we took, it's a third of what the other federal e-marketplaces charge. So that's a great way to get into the federal government. You have the technology now like the other e-marketplaces don't offer, and you can scale that technology. And Julie, I think we have that in the deck after the Fiserv piece that we'll really spend most of the time on to talk about that technology, because it's really all goes back to technology. We talked about what technology is out there for B2C. Lots of great choices. We'll talk about Fiserv next. Talked about channel marketing. Didn't spend a lot of time on there because if I'm consulting everybody on the call right now, I would say leapfrog it. It's very competitive. Yes, you can sell on multiple e-marketplaces, but you're not going to drive a business revenue line. And I would really focus on whatever, using your resources and your investment in technology that you could scale on. So with that being said, we'll go right into the next piece. So as I mentioned a couple times now, Fiserv is a great partner. So that's why I chose Fiserv. We worked with Logic Block in the past. We worked with Illusion. We know who they are. A lot of our MBE diversity partners have used those other ones. But I always say, if you can go to a company that has everything and they're competitive, that's where I'd want to go, because that's where I can scale. Even if I'm just getting started with B2C and I just want to build my own storefront, can Fiserv do that? And the answer is yes. And do they have templates that I can build it so it matches up to my product offering? And can I design it myself? And do they have a team to help me do all that? The answer is yes. Now, can you say, does Volusion and those other folks have it? Yeah, they do as well. But then you have to ask yourself, okay, well, now I have to talk about banking. Now I got to talk about how to receive a credit card payment or a P card payment, mostly credit card when it's B2C though. and being able to process that. And I have to get this thing called a merchant account to do it online. Yep, Fiserv's got another division that does that called Card Connect. So you're able to go into a company like Fiserv, and they have multiple solutions where you can grow. Do they have capital? Do they have banking? Do they have website design? Do they have merchant processing? Yes, 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 yes. So when we recommend someone, because I've been doing this, actually they gave that date, so I dated myself since 1989. So that's what we always recommend as consulting. We say, you really want to look at one that's going to be all inclusive, somewhere where you can go and have a starting point and you can continue to scale, very similar to our business plan. So that's exactly our partners over at Fiserv. Great one to look at. But again, I'm here and being somewhat impartial. So yeah, there's other ones, Volusion, Logic Block. There is other technology out there. If I was consulting today, I would say I would look at Fiserv first. And then if you want to look at for comparisons, look at some of the other ones. But all inclusive with Fiserv, great group, great teams, been around a long time. And I would, if it's not the largest in the world, it's within the top 3. So what better partner? Okay, Julie, to our next screen, please. And I think we have quite a few questions, so I'll try to get this in the next 12 minutes.
A lot of questions from the small business owners, David, and I'm asking them to share their story, right? The industry they're in, so we can focus more, like give them better answers, very focused on their needs. So I'm capturing all of that while you keep going with this wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much. I think we're coming close to the close because this is that piece. And again, not here to sell EPS. If I wasn't, I don't sell. I always consult. And the same with my team. I have a sales, says sales at ePro, but they're actually software consultants. They'll talk about everything like I did if you get a hold of them. But when we came to market with EPSE Connect, we literally did this 15 years ago. And it was named differently and so on. But we started off, and a lot of folks on the phone are probably, most of them maybe, other ones, those that don't make their own product, most of our MBEs, most of our diversity partners are third-party resellers. So they're aligned with distributors or wholesalers. So they're aligned with the Staples of the world, or Grainger, or MSC, or Cinex, or any bit, we call them the bigs, any big, large distributor reselling their products. A lot of them have diversity reseller programs. That's where we started 15 years ago, helping small businesses and MBEs. We started there. Actually, we have a program with Staples right now, Buy Local. They're expanding their Buy Local campaign. So they're looking for more diversity suppliers to bring in the Staples. As long as they have this type of technology I'm about ready to talk about, they want to be able to bring more and build their diversity reseller program. So we partner with companies, and they're called a strategic distributor for us, Staples is, to help them bring on more resellers so they can bring more resellers locally to businesses throughout the country. Same thing with NMSDC with their own e-marketplace. Same thing with NDVSB on the private and public side with the federal government that we're doing with the Army, Air Force, and we presented to all federal agencies last week. Came back to, we have to bridge that technology gap. All of our small business partners have to have the technology. How do we make this affordable for them? They have to have these 3 modules. You have to be able to build an e-catalog, back to B2C, exactly what Fiserv would help you do for B2C. This is what we do for B2B and B2G. So you have to build an e-catalog. And when you're in B2B and B2G, now you can tell my voice is changing. I'm getting excited because I love this part of it. I love talking about the growth, because we're moving past, we're going past the B2C now. We're getting into B2B and B2G, and the technology is available. So, but how do I take catalog? Because at scale, what if I have 2 customers now, and 8 months from now I have 10, and they're all different pricing because I bid on something, or I'm on the NDVSB marketplace for private, another one for public. Yes, you can manage all different price sheets on here. Our largest MBE partners, diversity partners, they have 1.5 million plus items within their catalogs, managing for multiple marketplaces and multiple buying organizations. So then our partners say, okay, well, that's great. But remember when you talked about e-procurement, a lot of my customers have that Ariba or Coupa or whatever. How do I get all those orders? I don't want to go in and manually do everything that David talked about earlier. That's EPS Fulfill. That's the second module of EPSE Connect. Call it an electronic catcher's mitt. It catches any PO from anywhere. Any marketplace, any e-procurement platform, any buying platform, even if it's an ERP system, SAP, Oracle, etc. And then you always have to say, oh, how are they going to pay? Go e-invoicing, credit card, P-card. That's the third module of EPSE Connect. Now our small business partners, our diversity partners say, I can send the invoicing, I can do summary invoicing, I can integrate the ERPs, I can integrate the e-procurement platforms, and I can do all of this, and I can have all of this for $1,500. It's a market value of 75 grand plus, but we had to make it affordable, and we had to put a fund together, and that's exactly what we did during COVID. Again, got to get away from turning too much into a sales pitch, but it's the technology. We bridged the technology gap for our small business partners. That's the key of moving forward now, especially since COVID. It was already moving in that direction. COVID pushed it ahead 5 years. Everything's going online. There's more and more e-marketplaces popping up everywhere. And our small business partners have to be in line with that. It's not an option anymore. You have to move into that now. So a couple more screens and then I'll start taking questions, Laura. And I'll just go, you're going to get this. So again, I already mentioned most of this, but I mentioned catalog. So it allows you to manage, you can build different margins. You can manage millions of SKUs because it does it by category, not by line on them. It really helps you improve your profit margins. The next one will tell you more about Fulfill. So Fulfill is going to be that catcher's mitt. And that's what I talked about. How am I able to process? Can I do all this? Can I send back tracking information? Can I do all the things a buying organization wants me to, or this e-marketplace that I'm integrated to asks me to do? Can I do all these languages, EDI, XML, CXML? Yep. Now that you have Fulfill, you can do all those things. It's all these acronyms I'm using. Most of the small business partners go, I don't know what any of that means. It's okay. Because when you're working with EPS, we are your technology partner. We are side by side. You always have somebody working with you, even if it's just to say, okay, I want to start here. Can you introduce me to the Fiserv people? Absolutely. And when you're ready, let's bring you to B2B and B2G. And I'm sure the Fiserv folks would tell us about that when you're ready. Anyhow, so that's Fulfill. And then EPS Pay, again, you'll get this deck, but that's the biggest piece too. When you go to corporate and public sector folks and you say, I can do all of this now. I can take on a credit card, encrypted, unencrypted. It's called banking level 3 line item detail. As a small business, I can do it all. I can integrate into your systems. I can send you e-invoices right into your ERP system. So our small business partners, before they started working with us, they couldn't say any of that. And the ones that could say it, tremendous amount of resources, investment they made in order to do that. So that is really, in 45 minutes or so, where we really take a look at the entire market. What do you fit? Where do you start? And as I mentioned, I talked to Laura a couple of times prior to the call. She said a lot of our folks, they make their own necklaces and they make their own clothing. Okay, I can tell you right now, probably the best place to start would be Amazon on the B2C side, and talk to Fiserv then and talk about your own e-commerce storefront. And if you're going to do that and you're going to start doing an e-commerce storefront, especially if you're in services, how do I get my search engine optimization the best within Google and other that are out there? And so I'm found right away. There's all different ways. Fiserv folks can help you with that. And again, there's other ones, but that's all the consulting we do from front to back, and scalable and growth. So Laura, I'm ready for questions. Julie's ready for questions.
I love it. Yes, absolutely. I'm ready for questions. And Julie, you can just stop sharing your screen. Okay, fantastic. And I'm going to change to gallery view. So it was great. Thank you so much. It is a lot of information. I totally understand. People are saying, I have a very small company. How does that connect to me? And I think, first of all, this connects totally to you because you just need to have that vision, right? Because if you really want your business to grow, it is important to know that it's not just a basic website that you need to build or improve, but there are many more things and more tools that you could use to even reach that big buyer that everybody wants to reach, right, at some point in our business life. So I have one question here. We're going to start with the different scenarios, and I encourage everybody to please add your story on the Q&A. So whatever you share on the chat, please copy paste it into the Q&A to make sure I don't miss it. But if not, I'll try to go through the chat, but if you will help me tremendously with that. So Eliandra West is telling me, can you speak about how a 4-year-old education services, independent contractors, small businesses can get more special education teaching contracts? Sorry, I have a so she has a website, and she's reaching weekly to the Department of Education agents that head the regional offices that create the smaller contracts. And she's having a tough time connecting with a particular Department of Education agency that handles larger price point, $200 an hour contracts. I never get a response. So I'm not sure if this is very specific, I understand, but maybe it connects to your e-procurement services, David. I'm not sure if you have any comments on this.
Well, it's more of the consulting side, Laura. So, when you get into those type of services and you're looking for, and that's a public sector, I'm sure she's talking about private or public schools, and looking at how to get in contact with those buyers. A lot of times it's with the state's Chamber of Commerce. So they all have to be listed within the state if they're a public sector entity. And that's the best way in order to connect if you're trying to get involved with any type of those public sectors, especially within the school network.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I believe I understood the question that way.
Okay, and then we have a very basic, what is the difference between selling online for products versus services, versus service providers? Is there a difference? Is there a different way probably to approach it?
Yeah, so actually there's not a big difference between that, other than the services. Obviously you don't have a product catalog, so there's no product catalog to put out there. The biggest thing on the service side is really, and it's the same for product, but services is search optimization. So the first thing they're going to look at when you go and you register and you're putting your services out there for any search engine is going to be geographic. So you're going to be found geographically. So if you're just a local or regional, you're only going to be found local. And that's the first one. And that's the easiest way to be found on any type of search engine. From that point forward, that's when you really have to start looking at keywords. And that's when it starts costing a little bit of money when you start talking about search engine optimization. Now you got to figure out what keywords the customers are typing in to find your services. So there's companies out there that have done research within your service market, and they can tell you what those keywords are, but they charge for all that. So it goes back to, what's my goals? Where do I fit? And what is my resources to get there? And are you local? Are you regional? Or are you trying to go national? So there's not a big difference other than search optimization, very important, and catalog content. When you're selling online products, obviously you'd have to have a catalog.
Okay, fantastic. And then maybe it's good to clarify what is search engine optimization, because I know that not many people are familiar with that, with SEO. They may have seen it somewhere, but if you could just briefly explain why it is so important, that would be fantastic.
Sure. Well, you know what? I'm going to date myself again. So search engine optimization, if any of you remember, phone books or the yellow pages or that, that's where all of the information is within the search engine. So Google, everything's in Google. And when you go Google now, if you're able to, it's called keywords, and you start typing keywords. And depending on what you're typing in is what's going to come up first. Now, here's the catch. Google changes the algorithms. Everybody wants to make money. Unfortunately, they're making money off of our small businesses that can't afford them changing stuff all the time. So that's part of where you start thinking, okay, how can I make myself unique in order to keep my costs down? So search engine optimization is when anyone on the internet is in Google or any other search engine, what words are they going to type so they find me? And then again, as I mentioned, that is all, you can build all that within their search engine. You build that, or you hire companies outside. Like I said, in order to find EPS, if I wanted because it's earning per shares no matter what, I'd have to pay hundreds of $1,000s a year to keep up with Google's clicks to find EPS. So we just used NDVSB to find it. So you have to find different ways in the search engine to say, well, if I can't afford to do all that, or I don't want to spend that money, how do I use a search engine so they find me? And you become more and more unique. So those unique keywords. NDVSB is a unique acronym. So they can find EPS very easily through NDVSB. That's search engine optimization. Lots of things you have to take into consideration. Companies are built on helping other companies with SEO.
Right, that's true. So I hope that gives a better idea to people why this is so important, because you could have a great website, a great marketplace, and then the search engine optimization is not great, right? Or is not very targeted to your needs and to your target audience, which is very important to identify as well. I have another question here. She's a therapist. She is also a yoga teacher, and she would like to start, I think, selling her services online, right? And here she was wondering, where should she start in order to make that happen? Should I start on my website, and what should I do next?
So if she has a website built now, yeah, that's exactly where you want to start. And the next thing is, I think you said, did you say yoga?
Yes.
Yeah, so that would be
She's
local.
a yoga teacher as well. She's a massage therapist and a yoga teacher. And I think she would like to start selling those services online.
So that's where you want to go on to into the search engines, and you want to be able to go into there and put your characterizations in there. That's going to be the map. That's the Google map, so to speak. So that's how you're going to be found without having to pay Google any money, because they're going to do it by map, your location, your address. So that if you go in there now, you'll see the first ones that pop up are those that are local to you. So that you have to make sure your website's set up that way within Google or other.
Right. And will she need a marketplace in this case, or she could just start with a website and listing her services and creating a contact form? Will that be a very basic starting point?
That's exactly. That's the basic starting point.
Okay,
that's where you want to start. Yep.
Okay, fantastic. They are saying, what's better as a commercial or sales platform, Google, Amazon, or LinkedIn? Well, it depends on what service, probably what products or services you're trying to sell, Ramon. Let us know, give us more information. I know someone was having someone shared with me that they were starting their startup and they want to grow, and she's currently on Etsy, and but she's not very happy with Etsy. And she's saying, probably I need search engine optimization. I asked her why she's not happy with Etsy, but I haven't been able to drive business to my site. So what do you think is the problem?
So again, whether it's Etsy, whether it's Amazon, any of the e-marketplaces that are out there, they're very competitive. And there's multiple ways in order for you, it's called winning the buy box. So again, when someone searches for your offering, what you're offering, it comes to the top. So if you're not actively involved in Etsy and making those adjustments within your account, you're not going to come up to the top. And that's where, again, they'll say, oh, buy ads, and it'll help you get to the top, and you'll win the buy box. Or look at the data analytics, like Amazon has data analytics, and so does Etsy. And you'll be able to see when people search for yours, where did you land? Were you in the top 10? Were you in the top 20? And why were you there? Was it because of pricing? So you have to be very proactive when you're on Etsy or Amazon. And there's a lot of different things you have to do in order to reach the top when people are searching for you.
Okay, yeah, that's such a great advice. Yeah, do your own research first. And then after that, if you need extra support, of course, you can call David and you can explore so he can suggest other opportunities for you, other type of selling or reach that audience that you want, and drive more business to your website and not necessarily Etsy. So Ramon, who is the person that was asking the question previously, he is a small business in healthcare industry. They sell medical equipment. Their focus is to sell ultrasounds for radiologists, etc., emergency rooms. And they're here on this webinar because they would like to find their target market and optimize their sales process and increase our sales. Maybe you have a more strategic plan for them that you would recommend, since they are in this specific healthcare industry and they are selling these products, which are pretty sure not that cheap. So will you have any recommendations on how they could increase their sales?
Yeah, and you said it was mostly healthcare. So is it large or
Yes,
small?
yes, they sell medical equipment.
Medical equipment. So it's one of depending on the size of the
Mhm.
healthcare industries that they're working in. So if it's large healthcare organizations, or is it regional, or is it state? So we have ones here in Michigan, like Sparrow Hospital. It's only 17 hospitals, surgical centers. So it goes back to and it's a great question, because especially when you have products that you're selling and you're selling within that market. In most of those markets, they don't have an e-procurement platform. And if it's large capital items that they're selling, then that's really going back into getting to their bidding process. So depending on where you're at, we would love to talk to you, because it's really, now you have a target market you're going after. We have to identify what's within that target market, what are their purchasing and financial processes. Then we determine what's the best solution for you. So we have to do more due diligence on what you're selling, and then what's your target market. It's healthcare is fine, but now we have to find out the size of healthcare market, smaller hospitals, etc.
Right. Okay, yes, so that's a very good advice. And we are just a couple minutes away from ending this webinar. I'm so thankful to all of you for sharing your stories. This is a very something that I think a lot of people could relate to. We are literally just starting. We have begun to build our online store on our website, and also social media marketplaces. Also looking at Amazon FBA and Walmart, but I feel like we will be drawn out. We're selling Latino focused products for grooming, t-shirts, bags, prints, etc. So what will be your advice? It seems like they have started correctly. They had their website, they started selling some of that online.
Yep. So they started with the website, and now they're looking at what is the best e-marketplace to go into, and then scaling out outside of that. So your biggest audience is obviously going to be within Amazon, and that's where you're going to start on the B2C side. Depending on the rest of your product line, you might fit into the B2B side. So that's why we always we would recommend talking more to you about your product line, and does it fit anywhere in B2B? Because what's nice about Amazon is when you join them, you can be on both B2B and B2C at the same time. And you obviously then have a larger audience from that point forward. And if you're selling promotional items, branded items, that may be something that you look at, because then you can get involved in some of the other e-marketplaces. So for example, NDVSB is going to have a B2C marketplace first quarter of next year for the federal government. And it's more of the B2C, and consumers, especially Army and Air Force, all retired military is going to be buying from the B2C site. So lots to talk about within that area, but the quick answer would be, you already did it there. I would look at Amazon, talk with our folks about your product, and then talk about B2B and B2C within Amazon, especially if it's a unique offering that you have, because then you get to set up and build your own what's called Amazon part numbers, ASIN numbers associated to your part number.
Yeah. And someone just related to SEO is asking if you would advise any specific web search optimization. What company do you advise to use for web search engine optimization? I know it's
that one there's a lot of them out there. That one we don't have a specific one because it's very competitive.
Yeah, I even get spam emails every time saying, hey, do you want to improve your SEO? So be very careful with any emails. Make sure that it's a valid website, it's an official website, a official company.
You got it.
Before you spend money on any sort of offers like that you may get via email once you start opening your website, because that's when you start getting all those emails at times. But well, we have reached the top of the hour. So I want to thank you, David, for these fantastic webinars. Thank you for sharing such useful information with all our attendees. I'm sure it has been a great investment of their time, and they will certainly have a better idea on where to start if they are planning to start selling their products and services online. And some of you probably realize that you are starting correctly, right, with your website and with some basic marketplaces, so that you can start testing your products as well. And thank you so much to Comcast Rise, and thank you to all of you for joining us today. Don't forget, our annual conference, the USHEC National Annual Conference, will be held September 26th to 28th, 2021, so this year, at the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino. David, we hope to see you there.
Yes.
Same thing, Julie. But if you cannot join us in person, we also have the opportunity for you to join virtually. Registration is now open, and we're going to be sharing the link with you on the chat. And we'll also be sending the presentation to all of you. Correct, David? Correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yep.
I think I'm sharing the presentation that David shared with us today, and we'll send you all the links that we share on the chat as well. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest. Yes,
And
David.
just Laura, just real quick, I saw a couple chats come up. So when you get the presentation, there's some email addresses to get a hold of us. I see some of the questions were answered.
Oh, nice.
One asked about we're not veteran specific, we're diversity specific. So yes, we have a lot of Latinos within our diversity supply chain that we work with. So someone asked, is there another company like us that's Latino? We're diversity across the board. So
Fantastic.
Email addresses are there. We'd love to talk to you no matter what stage you're at. Our team's here ready to help and just have conversations.
Yes, David spent like an hour with me before this webinar teaching me about e-commerce and e-marketplace. So he was very patient and one excellent customer service. So we totally recommend you to call David for any additional questions. Feel free to send me an email as well. You'll get an email from me. Thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Laura.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.